Hi everyone, welcome. I'm so glad you can join me for my Q&A. Hopefully you're going to enjoy my first live. I'm so excited for my Q&A. So if you're on here and you want to talk about anything Mahjong, I'm happy to answer all your questions, so tap them in below. A few things I want to go over today. We're going to talk about some various things dealing with Mahjong. So whether you haven't ever heard of Mahjong, I'm going to introduce you to it, or whether you are a seasoned player and been playing for years, I have a few tips to help you with your Mahjong game. So stick with me for a little bit and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we have a lot of questions that I'm answering, or maybe not, I don't know, but we're going to go through a little presentation first. And so the first thing I want to talk about is about myself. My background is I'm an accountant, a minor in management, and I did that for many years until I had my children, and then I stayed home with them. Learned Mahjong from my mother-in-law back in 2012, and she started teaching me, and I had questions, and I was unable to find a teacher for myself. But I muddled through it, and I taught myself going through videos and books. And then I went to my local library where a lovely woman there helped me brush up on all the things that I was shortfalling from, I guess. And she shared with me what I was doing wrong and how to help me be better. And so I actually still play with her today. So then I decided that I needed to go back to work. My children were getting older, and I didn't know if I wanted to do the 9 to 5 job. So at the same time, I also needed to be home for my kids in the afternoon. So I went to a different library and asked them if they would have a morning program where we can play Mahjong. And they said, yes, but you have to teach people. So that's how I got into Mahjong. I started teaching people at our local library. My first class was 22 people, and I created my own business. And so I get to do what I love every day. I teach Mahjong to so many people. My other interests, if you care, I love to crochet and knit. I read. That's where my love from the library is from. And I do anything crafty. I like being creative. One of my true passions is watercolor painting, which I enjoy very much painting when I can. Then family life, I have 3 children, and they're no longer children, they're adults. They're almost all on their own. And I've been married for 27 years to my best friend. I'm going to go over a brief presentation to help you understand what Mahjong is. First of all, I did want to talk about the history of Mahjong. So there are many different kinds of Mahjong. There is Chinese, Wright Patterson, which is the military people developed, Filipino, Japanese, and Hong Kong. There's so many, I can't even list them all. But I wanted to share with you that today I'm talking about American Mahjong, the National Mahjong League. The spelling of Mahjong is found many different ways. Some people spell it M-A-H-J-O-N-G, or how we most spell it for the American version is M-A-H space J-O-N-G-G. The meaning of the word of Mahjong loosely means game of sparrows. It's the noise that you hear when the lovely tiles clatter together. Chinese have been playing Mahjong since the 19th century. And so there was a gentleman who was over in China on business named Joseph Babcock, who back from China in the 1920s, and he taught his friends, evolved from there. And in 1937, the National Mahjong League was formed to standardize the rules on the card and to uniform it. So we use a card when we play Mahjong. This is when American Mahjong became part of history. The idea of the game of Mahjong is similar to the game of Rummy. So I think most games are based from Rummy family. Just like cards, the goal of Mahjong is to work towards combinations which are created through picking and discarding. So there's some steps where you claim tiles and you pass tiles, but you have to collect these groupings of singles, pairs, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, and sometimes even a quint. And I'm going to share with you some presentation of what Mahjong again is still about. And so let me share my screen. If you're here and you're a seasoned player and already know, just stick with me. I have some additional information that you'll be sure to be able to listen to. So we have the card that comes out every April. So we're on the very cusp of the new card coming out. I think it's like 26, 27 days. So we're very excited to be able to play with the new card. The background of the card changes colors from year to year. This year it is going to be blue in April. We just are finishing up with the card that was red. Each player is required to have a card. Then, as I mentioned, this April we're going to start with 2023. The game is played with 152 tiles, unlike regular Chinese Mahjong, which plays with 144. We go over the different tiles, but again, it's on 152. Also included in your set when you play Mahjong is a pair of dice we use to determine who is going to be the dealer and how we break the wall. We have coins and chips that we use for betting that they're assigned a value. However, most people don't use them anymore. They either use physical coins or they don't bet at all. We have racks that we keep our tiles on, a slanted part where we put our tiles facing us, and then there's a flat top part where when you're playing, you put tiles up on top to show everybody what groupings you're collecting. And then there's also a little arm that swings out that'll help you push your tiles out during play. Then there's different types. First one is a wooden rack. Then there's a modern one, which is made of plastic that the pusher is attached to. Then the other thing we have is called a wind indicator. There's these little round discs. It helps the bettor put the location of who they think is going to win the game. So Mahjong is played with 4 people, and sometimes you have 5, and so that person will become the bettor. And they bet on who's going to win. And they put it on this wind indicator, which has these directions of the compass, which is north, east, west, and south. Again, you do need a card. Every player needs a card. It does not come with a set. You only need one set to play. Every player does need to purchase their card through the National Mahjong League. And then for setup, we usually play at a card table or a small round table, ideally with 4 players, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go briefly through the tiles just to help you understand Mahjong a little more and maybe have an interest in learning how to play. There are, again, 152 tiles. So let's get into it. Just like a deck of cards, if anybody plays cards out there, there are 4 suits in a deck of cards. Mahjong has 3 suits. The first suit is BAMs, and they're 1 through 9. The second suit is cracks, 1 through 9, and they're primarily red in color, and BAMs is short for bamboo, and they're green in color, and cracks is characters, and they're red. Then we have our final suit, which is dots, and they're kind of multicolored, but they have little circles on them, but we call them dots. And then they each have a matching dragon, which is part of their suit. So BAM has the green dragon, and the cracks have the red dragon, and the dots have the white dragon. Each suit is numbered 1 through 9, and there's 4 sets of each. So there's 4 BAMs, there's 4 5 cracks, there's even 4 white dragons. So everything is 4 in the set. Next, we'll talk about another grouping of tiles called the winds. There are 4 of each of these, so they are the directions on a compass, and so it's north, east, west, and south, and collectively we call them news. Many people enjoy referencing the winds as news. So there's 4 of those. Our next group of tile is called flowers. There are 8 of them. And then we have 8 jokers, which are wild tiles, which we can use to play in the game also. American Mahjong is played with 4 players, and you can play it with 5. You can even play it with 3 or 2. We have the same rules, but we have different setup for the different number of people. It's a game of luck and skill, just like chess or bridge, but most people do need to learn the strategies in order to become a better player. You can read the rules through the National Mahjong League booklet called Mahjong Made Easy. But again, they're confusing sometimes and challenging when you're just reading a text. I'm kind of a hands-on person to help you once you learn the basic rules. I find the game is so challenging. That's why I enjoy it. I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning about myself, but I actually love games. I'll play any game you'd like. It's just fun and challenging. Again, the games have lots of rules. I think by watching my videos that I have here on YouTube, they're a great resource. Once you get under your belt the basic rules, you can go back and start looking at videos and it'll all come together a little better for you. Mahjong's a great way to exercise your brain. It has some great organizational principles, and you get to change your hand throughout the game however you see fit. If you do get to learn Mahjong or you're already playing Mahjong, you probably play at least once a week on your weekly game, or you can play multiple times a week. Sometimes there's people who go for weekends and play Mahjong. It's just like canasta. If you play canasta or bridge or even poker, you know, you have your poker night, you can have your Mahjong night. Let's go into the objective of the game. So again, the first objective is to be the first person to collect their 14 tiles towards a combination on the card. Again, the card is purchased separately from the National Mahjong League. And on the card, there are 60 printed hands that you can choose to build your tiles towards. Now let's talk about the card. The card again is through the National Mahjong League and it has 9 categories on it. And the categories are organized like this. The first one is called the year category. So those will be tiles that for the current year. So when you get your new card in April, we'll be collecting tiles with the number 2 and 3 on them. Then there's a category called 2, 4, 6, 8, which are your even tiles. There's a category, any like numbers. That just means that if you were dealt a bunch of 5s, you can play this category, and it's all different suits. Remember, there's 3 suits, bams, cracks, dots, and so we'll learn it that way. Then there's a quint category, which is 5 of everything. Now remember, we only have 4 of everything. So in a quint category, you have to have at least 1 joker at a minimum. Usually, mostly, we need 2, but you want to really have a lot of jokers in quints. Then we have a consecutive run category. This is the easiest for most Mahjong players to play because it is a run of numbers in groupings of a pair, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. Then there's a category called 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That is those tiles with that number in different suits and the odd numbers. We have winds and dragons, as I mentioned. We have the word news, and then we have those matching dragons, green, red, and white. Then we also have a category called 3, 6, 9, which is a combination of odds and evens, but specifically the numbers 3, 6, 9. And then there's this unique category. It's called singles and pairs, and it's just that. It's all the tiles, whole card in one little category, and you're creating a single tile or a pair of tiles, and you're creating a string of numbers together, 14 tiles, in order to win Mahjong. Now everybody gets to pick where they want to play once they're dealt their tiles. Obviously there's better ways to choose your categories than others, but really you could just choose a category to play, and then you're collecting tiles to build towards that hand that you've chosen. So again, there's 9 categories. There's 66 printed hands on the card, but they can be made in multiple different ways with different numbers, with different colors, meaning suits. You can arrange them however you see fit, but you do have to follow the pattern in order to win Mahjong. Once you get all of your tiles in that sequence, which is 14 tiles, you can win Mahjong. Most of the hands have parentheses next to them, which help you build your hands better. The back of the card has all of the simple basic rules of Mahjong, so it's a good reference point when you're playing to look there or have read it prior to playing to make sure you understand all the rules. This is an example of what a hand might look like on the card. I can't show you the card because it is copyrighted. It belongs to the National Mahjong League, and you can't see it unless you purchase it. But anyway, the hands look like they're composed of 14 tiles. So here I'm showing you 2 Fs, which would stand for flowers. You would need 2 flower tiles. Then you would need 3 of a kind of 2s in one suit, and a pair of 4s in the same suit that's matching. So we'll say we're going to use the dot suit. So we need 3 2 dots and a pair of 4 dots. Then where the color changes, we change suit. So now I'm going to use bands. I need a pair of 6 bands and 3 of a kind of 8 bands. And now all 3 colors are there, so now we need to use our final suits, tracks, which would be the red dragon, and D stands for dragon, so we need 2 red dragons. The colors on the card do not indicate what suit, just a suit. And in this instance, we have to use all 3 suits because of the 3 different colors. If you're on and you would like to chat, you can put yourself in the chat and I'll be happy to share answer your questions because we're going to get into that. Let's move on. Again, the biggest challenge in Mahjong is learning the card and how to build the hands. I have great ways on some of my videos to help you do that, or you can always take a lesson from me and I can help you do that. I do teach lessons both in person and virtual. I'm actually in Monmouth in Ocean County, New Jersey, so if you're in the area, I'd be happy to teach you. I just wanted to give you what some winning hands would look like, and I'll just go through just 4 of them, and then we'll move on with our program here. So this is an example of any like numbers. They have 3 flowers and 3 flowers. You would need to have a total of 6 flowers for this hand. And then this is any like numbers. They decided to use the number 2. And if you count up the total tiles, it equals 14. So if you completed this sequence in your hand, you would have Mahjong. The next grouping, it is an example of consecutive run. You would have 2 flowers. Numbers on the flowers are insignificant in our game. They're just flowers. We don't use the numbers. And then this is a run of numbers. We have to have 4 of them. And the sequence here is 5, 6, 7. And again, it's composed of 14 tiles. The next grouping is called 2, 4, 6, 8. It is an example of a winning hand. Again, this is a pair of 2s, a single 4, a single 6, and a pair of 8s, all in one suit. And then we change suits, and we have the other groupings of 4, 2 different suits. Our final example, 3, 6, 9. And in 3, 6, 9, in this example, we're only using 2 suits. You could choose what 2 suits you wanted. We have 3, remember, cracks, bams, dots. And in this example, we just use cracks and bams. And we had to have 3 of a kind of 3s, 3 of a kind of 6s, change suits, 4 of a kind of 6 bams, and 4 of a kind of 9 bams. I see there's a few people out there. If you want to tell me where you're from, tap it in the chat. And also, I'd love to answer any questions you have. If you've never heard of Mahjong and you want to ask questions, that's great. Or you can just pop in and ask me any questions if you're a seasoned player or a beginner. I'm happy to answer. So go ahead and tap in the chat. Take in any questions and answers. Hi out there. So again, I'm from New Jersey. I teach in Monmouth and Ocean County live, and I also do virtual. So nobody has any questions. There's several people out there, but nobody's chatting with me, and I was hoping I'd get some cute questions so I can answer. I will tell you some great resources for you. Call me or email me at Mah Jongg Class here at the bottom of your screen. It's called Mah Jongg Class. It's MahJonggClass at yahoo.com, and you can send your questions to me. Another great resource for you is actually calling the National Mahjong League, or you can go on their website and they have a facts and questions page. You can look there. The best resource for you is actually the back of your card when you're looking for answers. Make sure you read there first. And then the National Mahjong League has a booklet. It's about 30 pages. It's called A Mahjong Made Easy. You can look there. I do see Kathy's on there. Hi, Kathy. Glad you joined me. It's Kathleen, I'm sorry. And Kathleen's from Connecticut. Thank you, Kathy, just for popping in. I appreciate the support. So please, if you're on, put your questions in. I was hoping to get a little bit of questions, but it's okay. I had a little presentation to share just to keep us going here. Next thing I wanted to go over is for those people who are maybe just beginners or intermediate and they're nervous about joining a group, I wanted to talk about at the start of your Mahjong game, what 3 things you need to decide when you get to a new group. It can be very nerve-wracking. I remember going, it was like, standing on stage and you were like a rack, but you'll make lifelong friends with your Mahjong. They connect you for life. So let's talk about the different things you can ask. So the first thing you want to do, 3 things. The first thing is you need to find out if the group has any house rules or table rules. Unfortunately, some people don't realize that they have house rules because they have been taught by their grandmother or their mother or their aunt or a friend that maybe didn't know all the National Mahjong League rules. You can ask, sometimes they do know that they're stretching the rules. So you want to make sure that they share with you their house rules so that any arguing or you're disappointed in the play. You have to decide whether you want to play with them or not. I'm kind of a rule follower myself, so I enjoy playing by the rules, but also if I go to a new game, I want to make some new friends, so I do sit back a little bit and just see how the game progresses. The next thing you want to do is ask the group if they play for money, points, or just for the win, because you have to make sure you go there that you need to bring a purse full of change. So if you're going to be playing for money, or if they just play for points, and I play at the local library, so we just play for the win. So at the end of the day, everybody's like, oh, I won twice, you won 3 times, oh, look at you, you're the big winner. It's a good thing to find out because you don't want to come empty-handed if you're supposed to bring money. The first thing, obviously, is you can play just for fun for the win. You also want to find out, again, if they play for money, and usually it's called a pie, and they'll give you like a set point of $3. So you come with $3 and change, and that's how much money you're willing to lose for the day. And if you do lose that, you can still continue to play the game, and you don't owe any money. You don't have to keep track, oh, I owe Susie 20 cents, or 25 cents, or I owe Betty 50 cents. You don't have to keep track. You can just keep playing. And then once you start earning money again, then you can go ahead and start paying out. So usually the pie is like $3 to $5. You keep it separate from your any other money you have in your purse, and that's going to be, pie stands for a purse is empty. So that's the amount of money that you're willing to lose that day. The next thing, people can play with chips. Those are the little discs that I said earlier are included in the set. I really don't think that many people play with them. I have not come across it, but you can, start incorporating in your game if you don't want to. It's like Monopoly, how everybody gets a certain amount of money in Monopoly. You can do that with the chips also, assign a value to them and deal them out. When people play in tournaments, they also play based on points, and you can play just like when you play Rummy. You can write down on a piece of paper everybody's name and then write the points. The points are the value on the card, and again, I can't show you the card, but each line all the way over to the right has a point value of how much their value, and it ranges from 25 cents to 85 cents, and that is how much you win for the hand. So back to points, there are many places you can use as a point system. You can use it on cruises. People take Mahjong cruises, or again, as I mentioned, tournaments or mini getaway weekends. There's lots, and if you're in New Jersey, I think one's coming up in Piscataway. I think the company is called Mahjong Fever, if I'm correct, might be wrong. But if you just Google Mahjong Tournament Piscataway, New Jersey, it'll come up. It's a big thing here in New Jersey. And also, one of the biggest ones is in Vegas, if you want to go to Vegas. So you can Google Mahjong Tournament in Vegas. And if you're looking for a cruise, I think there's a company called Pack Your Bags, like Pack Your Bags, but Crack, and they have cruises. So you can try them out if you're interested in that. And the third thing, that in addition to making sure what the table rules are or the stakes in the game, you also want to make sure you know a quitting time. And that can be determined by the host or it can be determined by yourself. So some people play for like 3 hours at a time, and you're like, I just can't do that. I want to play for 2. So you would just say, that's fine. I'm going to come today, but I'm going to leave at 2 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. And as long as the group knows that, I don't think there should be a problem. But usually, typically, a Mahjong game is played with a minimum of 4 games because everybody gets a chance to be the dealer, or what we call East. And so you at least want to play a minimum of 4 games, which, if you're a seasoned player, should take you about an hour. If you're just a beginner, that could take you the whole 2 hours you're there to be able to play 4 games. Those are some little tips you want when you're starting your first Mahjong game with a new group. The next insight I wanted to share with you, one of the things that people are kind of scared away about Mahjong is that so many rules, and there are. But learning Mahjong from generation to generation, hopefully you were able to pick up all the rules, but sometimes there's gaps in them. And so that's where those table rules come in from, or people like to stretch it to make it easier to play. Or fun for some. Some people like to make up rules to make it funner. It's like telling a story. You might have not learned all the rules, and you could have added some to make the game, like I said, more interesting. So just know when you go, are you going to play wholeheartedly American National Mahjong League rules, or are we going to change them a little bit? It's all just how you like to play the game. Mahjong brings joy to many people, and one of the great things that I love about Mahjong is that very historical in its traditions and ceremonies and rituals. So there's a lot of little things you have to learn. That's what I like about Mahjong. It's like a ceremony when you build the table. It just brings joy to me to know that people before us were playing this way history. And I'm not even looking at the questions. I'm chatting away. So let's see. We have Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Welcome. She had asked, are there any techniques for learning the new card? She's been playing American Mahjong for a year, and she's in the Carolinas. Hopefully it's beautiful there. It's sunny here in New Jersey, but it is chilly. Let me give you a second, and I just want to read the next one. We have Arlene. She said she ordered the card. Do you know if it comes in March? If so, can it start using April 1st? So we use the card April 1st, Arlene. It usually comes maybe like the end of March, depending on where you are. It comes out of, I actually think it ships out of New Jersey for some reason. I think their distributor is in New Jersey, but they're in New York. Mahjong League is in Manhattan. It gets shipped out of New Jersey. So I'm usually one of the first people to get it. It makes me happy because I have to prepare all my teachings. I teach the new card every April. I have classes that's like a workshop for 3 hours, and I teach you all the nuances of the new card, and we review it and we compare it to the old card, and there's so many things I go through that I get you up to speed on the new card. As I mentioned earlier, if you have questions, you can ask the National Mahjong League, but they do get inundated at April 1st. Sandra, back to you were asking me how to learn the card. So you do not have to memorize the card by any means. But if you've been playing for a year and you're playing once a week for 1 year, so that's 52 times, you're definitely going to know the card by the end of the year. And I should mention how fabulous Mahjong is for your brain. When you learn these new patterns and sequences, you're finding new connections in your brain, and it's just really fabulous. It's just like doing a Duco or a Wordle or one of those puzzles. It's a really great game for your brain. Sandra, how do you learn the card? So I am like a crazy girl because I have to teach it. I learn it pretty fast. I go through it, I compare my card, I go and I make sure the number one thing I always tell all my students, and I have an exercise on YouTube that you can type in new card, and I have a whole series of playlists on how to learn the new card. People say, oh, she's crazy. And maybe I am. Like anything you love and anything that you want to be good at, you have to practice. Like playing the piano, you have to go and practice every day. So Mahjong, just, take a few minutes a day, look at the card, learn the categories. That's my number one suggestion, is learn those categories. Remember, there's 9. We went through them, memorize them. And I think I have a video on how to do that. Second thing I suggest is building the hands, taking your set of tiles out and build them in front of you. Third thing, after you do that, is you want to practice pulling 13 tiles and picking a category based on those 13 tiles. You just want to keep going through those methods, and you want to get quicker at it. If you go on Mah Jongg Class on YouTube, and that's Mah Jongg spelled with 2 G's, and Class has little rows on it, and you'll find lots of videos on there on how to learn the new card. Let's see what else. Here we have Orleans in Long Island, in New York. I'm so glad you're returning to the Mahjong game. She just said she's returning to Mahjong. And I actually, Arlene, if you're ever interested virtually, or you want to take a trip to New Jersey, I do teach a brush up class. It's 2 hours, and that's just an introduction. I go from start to finish. My regular beginners class is 4 classes, 2 hours each. But when I do a brush up, I take those 4 classes and condense them into 1 class for 2 hours. Because usually it's just like riding a bike. You're a little rusty, but as soon as you get back on that bike, you're flying away. So as long as I can get you back on the bike, you'll be like, oh, yes, I remember that. You can take my brush up class for 2 hours. Again, like I said, I have a beginner's class. That's 4 sessions, 2 hours each, so a total of 8 hours. Intermediate class for strategies. Again, that's 4 classes, 2 hours each, a total of 8 hours. We have the brush up, the new card class that I'm going to be running all the month of April. I have a coach and play. I can coach you. We can go and play online together, share your screen with me, and we can talk about why you would choose one hand over another, where you could switch hands. And that's just a coaching thing that usually, you pick how many times you want to meet, and that's called coach and play. And it's usually just an hour, but you can, again, I'm accommodate however you want to learn. As Sandra said, thank you. I will, sorry, I can't see. I will watch your card instruction videos. Yeah, they're really, I did take some time to put those together just last couple months. I have a lot of videos out there, so please go to my YouTube page and check them out. Those of you who are on here who are a little beginnerish or even advanced, I have some tips for you. Really quick background about myself. I'm a mom. And one of the things I enjoy doing, my 2 beautiful girls, they went through Girl Scouts. So I have that kind of mentality. I'm a true Girl Scout. I believe in empowering women and being strong. And so to take care of yourself and all the true values of being a good, kind human being. And so you'll see that throughout my teachings on how I mentioned to be patient and kind with yourself when you're struggling. You can reach out to me and just say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have a tip? Really, that's my teachings. I'm also patient and kind with my students. And so in this list, I used a lot of the Girl Scout beliefs and values, creating this list of tips. So I'm going to go through them, and some of them resonate with you, and hopefully you'll be mindful in your next Mahjong game. The first thing, I want you to be caring, and that means about how you're displaying your tiles. First of all, I should mention this. Be very kind to your set. I'll just toss those tiles around and they slam them and bang them. They do chip. I can't even tell you. I must have a dozen tiles sitting in my drawer that all have chips in them. Thankfully, modern sets come with replacements, but if you have your mother's or your grandmother's set, it's going to be hard to find replacements. And there are dealers out there, but it's not that easy. So anyway, our first tip, be caring. After the deal, you should be counting your tiles. Confirm that you have the right amount of tiles. So in the deal, you should have 13 and each should have 14. Be considerate. You want to keep your tiles stacked in front of you during the deal so that you can count that you have the correct number of tiles, and you want to make sure everybody gets the correct amount, and this way you can wait to display your tiles to yourself when everybody has theirs. These are just tips. They are not rules. By no means do you have to do any of this. I always say be the player you want to play with. So I always want to do the best I can in displaying myself as a good Mahjong player. You want to be careful, keep your tiles together, and that's when you display them on the rack. Everybody breaks them up into groupings. Oh, I have a pair, I have 3 of a kind, I have 4 of a kind, I have my discards all the way over to the right. You don't want to have any spaces. You don't want to be helpful to your opponents. You want to keep those tiles all pushed together so that no one can read your tiles who's sitting across from you or next to you. You can win games watching what people do. You want to be patient, only expose when you must. It's important to keep track of how many tiles have been discarded and how many tiles that you need. Keep your hand a secret as long as you can, because once you start putting those tiles on top and exposing them, you are then also committed and you have no flexibility to change your hand, and you're also showing your opponents what hand you are playing. Once you have 2 exposures up, it's usually pretty easy. You want to be quick. You don't want to be rude, but you want to be quick. So don't forget to pick your tile and put it in your rack. Once you rack it, we all know what that means, that it's your turn and the previous discard is no longer available. You want to be courteous. You want to keep the wall in the center of the table. So that means when that wall is all the way in the corner, you want to scooch it up no further than the center of the table. Remember, we're picking from the center of the table. You should never really make a mistake and pick from the back end. You're always picking from the middle. You want to be responsible. You want to figure out your opponent's hand. You want to play good defense. It's a good way to learn the card also. So when somebody has 2 exposures up, you should be trying to figure out what category at a minimum that they're playing in, and possibly even figure out what hand. Sometimes you can be in a couple different places, but based on what they're discarding or what's already been discarding, you can figure out their hand. You want to be observant. You want to make sure that you don't miss those joker exchanges. I can't tell you how many times, and it even happens to the most experienced player, you're distracted, you're thinking of something else, and you forget to do a joker exchange. Jokers win games. We all know that. We love our jokers. When you do an exchange, you're not going to touch somebody else's rack or tiles. You're going to hand them a natural tile, and then they will take it, and then they will give you the joker back. That joker goes in your rack to be used at another time, and then you end your turn on a discard. And don't forget, joker exchanges are on your turn only, and your turn either begins with you picking from the wall or you have called for an exposure. You want to keep the pace, and that means don't overthink every tile you get. You should already have your discards either on the far right, on the far left, or in the middle, but you should already have discards ready. You pick a tile, you should not be thinking of that tile you picked. You should just put it in your rack and discard another tile that you have ready. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure towards the end of the game or when you almost have all your tiles for Mahjong, you will have to take a moment and think. But in general, you should keep the game fairly quickly going. If you do stop to hesitate, what happens is your brain then starts getting all mixed up. It starts thinking about, oh, what other hands can I play? Where else can I go? And then the next thing you know, you're thinking about what you're having for lunch or dinner. So keep the game at a fast pace. It'll keep you on track. Here's a good Girl Scout one. You always want to be prepared. So being prepared is, like I was telling Sandra, you do have to learn the National Mahjong League card and practice building the hand, study the card when a time when you're not playing, and practice online. I could mention online. There's several online games. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to share with them with you. But there is one in particular that I really like. It's called I Love Maj. And if you go on there, it spells out ILOVEMAHJ. If you go on there and use the code CB, they normally give you a 2-week trial. They will give you an extra 3-week trial. You already are on there, and then you're going to pay for your yearly trial. Please use the code CB. just to let them know that I recommended you. And then we have be defensive. When all else fails and you're like, my hand is garbage, first of all, don't say that. Keep your poker face on and keep your mouth shut. You want to play defense, and that might mean throwing away all your jokers that you have. If you know you're not going to win, don't let anybody else win. That's a win for you. That's another motto of mine. And finally, be kind. You want to be kind to yourself, to the people at the table. We all just want to be loved. That's the bottom line, everyone. We all just want to be loved. So be kind to each other. Please, when somebody wins, please congratulate them, be happy for them, and double check the winning hand. And the best Mahjong player can make a mistake. I find it really sad when nobody even congratulates you when you win, and everybody's like, oh, who had my flower? Oh, who had the 2 bam? Really, at that point, who cares? Move on to the next game and play a new game. I can assure you there was 152 tiles when you started, that the 2 bam and the flower are in the set. What else can I say? Oh, I'm probably going to end here because I have been chatting. I just want to see if there's any more questions. I don't think there is, but I wanted to share with you. Please join me on Tuesday evenings at 6:30. I have a YouTube Live clinic where we go over strategies and I show you how to pick a hand, various things to help you with your game. You can also go on Tuesdays. So that's Tuesdays at 6:30. So our next one is this Tuesday, the 7th at 6:30. Game and with other Mahjong players. It could be you if you want to play against me. Don't be intimidated by me. As many of you know, it's all about the tiles you receive. And everybody always says, oh, but she's the teacher, she's really good. I might be a little more skilled, but if I don't get the tiles, I'm not going to win. There's been plenty of times my students have beat me, and I'm very happy for them. It makes me happy to see them happy. But if you want to join us, we play on Tuesdays on I Love Maj. My group is called Mah Jongg Class. You're more than welcome to join. And that's Tuesdays at 1, and this is Eastern Standard Time. And I would love to play against you, or maybe you'll find some other friends on there that you can have a weekly game with online. I do have to tell you, there's nothing like playing Mahjong in person. So if you're able to do that, that's wonderful. But I know some of you can't. So play online with everything you can. Oh, Sandra, thank you. Sandra says she watches my weekly clinics and enjoys and benefits from every session. Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate it. I'll take a minute if you guys have any more questions. I would love, again, if you wanted to share anything with me, I would love to hear from you. Anybody have any questions? And again, email me if you want me to answer it on the side. Maybe you didn't want to do it on live. That's fine. I did, again, was hopeful that we'd get a little more interaction, but that's okay. It's my first one, so we'll get through it together. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that, again, you'll join me on Tuesday evenings with the clinic, and I hope to do more of these questions and answers. So if you enjoyed this, shoot me a little email, or you can call me, or however you want to reach out to me. I love hearing from you. And when you're on the lives, if you could also chat in the lives, that does help me also. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for taking some time with me, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye, everyone.